another episode of Cooking with Vlada. In today's episode, we are continuing with our travels through France, and we're leaving Chateau Thierry and heading east. Our recipe today are homemade sausages, and this was inspired by World War I and World War II underground kitchens. The region stretching from Chateau Thierry to Epernay lies in the heart of a France's farmed Champagne wine region. It's a scenic journey through rolling vineyards, charming villages, and historic landmarks. These hills and these vineyards produce some of the world's most celebrated sparkling wines. As we travel closer towards Epernay, the landscape becomes increasingly dotted with champagne houses, limestone cellars, and endless vineyards. Grapes are grown here on a completely different scale, and I couldn't help but to compare my little town of Temecula, who currently has over 50 vineyards and 50 wineries, to this enormously rich region. The middle of Champagne region, and there are, I'm assuming, millions of acres of grapes, and it is just the most spectacular sight. There's no doubt that we are in the world's capital of the best champagne. The region's cool northern climate and soil play the key in producing perfect, crisp, and elegant champagne. Cool weather and the chalk and limestone rich soil provide perfect environment for these vines to reach their optimum. This kind of soil provides stable root environment during dry and cool spells. Epernay is a charming town and world-renowned as a capital of a champagne production. It might be small, but it packs sparkling punch like no other town in the world. Its crown jewel is the Avenue de Champagne, a grand boulevard lined with elegant 19th century mansions that house legendary champagne houses. Beneath the avenue lies over 110 kilometers of chalk cellars, where millions of bottles of champagne are aged in perfect condition. City of Verdun is full of history, but this one is by far the sweetest. We are stopping by one of the oldest and most treasured confectionaries in the country. Ever since 17th century, the Silla factory has perfected the art of making dragées. They are glossy, sugar-coated almonds and confections that have become a symbol of celebrations across France and beyond. A lot of their products today are still handmade. Their story begins in 1783, during the final years of the reign of Louis XVI. The dragée itself, originally invented in ancient times, was elevated to an art form here in Verdun. Over the centuries, they grew from a local treasure to a globally recognized name, delivering its sweets to royalties, aristocrats, and confectionery lovers. What makes this sweet factory truly unique is its ability to hold on tradition while still evolving with the times. Today, the company still uses time-honored methods, combining fine almonds, chocolate, and delicately flavored sugars with incredible care and precision. Now let's go and let me show you how to make very simple homemade sausages. First, we're gonna make the blend of basic spices, which is salt, paprika, sugar, and black pepper. We have our spices ready, and now I'm gonna grind some cured pork belly. This will add much needed and tasty fat to our sausages. The only reason I'm adding a little pork to our sausages is because I have an extra lean beef. Homegrown paprika and garlic are two key components in this recipe. I'll be using some of our homegrown garlic, and as you can see, it's much smaller than the store-bought garlic, but it's so much more fragrant. Just another reason why gardening is so much fun and it's so important. And by the way, growing garlic is super easy. And in this recipe, I'm gonna use only about a handful of fresh garlic. And I would suggest grinding it together with the pork belly. The first step is done, so we can continue with our explorations. We are continuing on our bubbly trail to Champagne Mercier. Founded in 1858 by Eugene Mercier, this champagne house aimed to bring quality sparkling wines to masses, not just for the elite. One of the winery's main attractions is this 20 tons wooden barrel. It was finished in 1881, but in 1889 it was transported to Paris for the World's Fair by 24 oxen and 18 horses. The barrel's capacity is 200,000 bottles of champagne. Mercier's giant barrel remains a historical icon and a testament to ambition and great marketing. That was a quick visit, and now we are pressing on. In my short visit to France, which is only 2 weeks, I'm trying to visit as many places so that I can bring you footage and stories from all around France. We drove through a nice little town called Maginot, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, and then we were off to a countryside. France is incredibly beautiful, and some of their attractions and sites are mesmerizing. But if you have a time to drive through France and see its countryside, I think you will be just as amazed as I was. Just look at these happy cows. No wonder everybody brags about the French butter. On our way east, we're gonna make a quick stop to Luxembourg. And we're doing it only because the gas is so much cheaper there. So we're gonna fill up our tank and we'll be back in France and off to our next destination. Let's go back to a sausage recipe, and now that we have our pork belly done, we're gonna add 6 pounds of organic grass-fed ground beef. Add the spices and mix it really well. Sometimes mixing by hand works the best. Next, the road takes us to one of the biggest war monuments in France. We have finally arrived to our main destination today. Welcome to one of the largest and most powerful underground fortresses of the legendary defense line in northeast France. Built between World War I and World War II, this colossal tunnel network was designed to stop a German invasion. But its story goes far beyond concrete and steel. It's a place where thousands of young men lived, served, and fought on both sides of the war. The tunnel was constructed in 1930s as the key stronghold in France's defense strategy. It spans over 10 kilometers of tunnels, buried in up to 30 meters deep into a hillside. Being such a foodie, I couldn't wait to visit kitchen area because I was curious to find out how they prepared the food while they were serving underground and what kind of foods they ate. Cooking for and feeding thousands of soldiers on a daily basis during the war is a big challenge. Now imagine having to do this underground. Yet this is something the French are very good at, and it appears that everybody was well fed while they served in tunnels. These are the tables where they would sit and eat, and this is a place where the dishes were washed. This was a little underground city. It had its own dentist, a doctor, even an operating room. And for everyday needs, there was a barber and a priest. Today, Hackenberg stands as a memorial and museum, and it's maintained by volunteers who work to preserve its history. As we walked through these living quarters, I could almost hear haunting echoes of thousands of young lives that passed through here. French, German, and later American. I'm sure many of them never had a choice. They were simply drafted, trained, and sent underground, caught in the machinery of global war. Most of these young men were in their early 20s. During the German invasion in 1940, there were about 1,000 French soldiers stationed at Hackenberg Tunnels. The fortress featured some of the most advanced military technology of the time. A very efficient and quick electric rail system designed to move munition and men through the tunnel at speed. Massive generators fed this elaborate electrical system. All throughout the tunnel, there was a sophisticated air filtration system that protected against chemical attacks. This wasn't just a bunker, it was a high-tech war machine. Today, much of this underground city has been restored and transformed into a museum. One that not only represents military hardware, but it brings history to life through something unique. Dozens of mannequins dressed in period uniforms from both World War I and World War II. Seeing the uniforms on human forms, posed in the same tunnels where real soldiers lived and served, makes the experience deeply emotional. You realize that you're not just seeing the tools of war, you're seeing the people behind them. I wish my kids were here because all three of us are big history lovers, and we particularly love watching the documentaries from World War I and World War II. It's very important to teach younger generations about the devastations and tragedies that wars bring to humanity. Hopefully, this will keep them from making the same mistakes as generations and generations of humanity have done in the past. If you're a history lover or just curious about what life was like underground during the world wars, this is a must-visit destination. You will come away not just informed, but deeply moved. The Hackenberg Tunnel Museum isn't just a look at military engineering. It's a journey through the lives of men who wore the uniforms, who slept, fought, and waited in these dark corridors under the shadow of war. We are going to finish today's tour by sharing with you one of the most advanced military technologies of that time. We are climbing to the area where they kept retractable turrets. Hackenberg had both 75mm and 135mm turrets. They were massive and heavy, and they required elevation and rotation mechanism to be powered. Beneath them were support chambers for loaders, ammunition storage, and control stations. The armor was very thick. While lowered, they were nearly flush with the surface, minimizing exposure. Currently, some of those retractable turrets are restored to working order. These turrets allowed fortifications like Hackenberg to have powerful guns that could engage targets over a wide arc while being protected. That made them a big defensive asset. However, they had drawbacks. Raising the turret made them visible and vulnerable temporarily. Also, maintenance, cost, and complexity were high. As warfare changed, especially with air power and mobile forces, fixed defensive structures like these became less decisive. In 1940, Hackenberg was surrendered by French to Germans. However, in 1944, during the Allied advance, American forces, specifically the 90th Infantry Division, retook the fortress after several days of heavy fighting. The Germans had booby-trapped the tunnels, and they were immense artillery exchanges. Even though Hackenberg was designed to withstand direct hits, the human cost of these battles, especially among the young infantrymen, was immense. About 1,000 French soldiers were stationed at Hackenberg before the Germans' invasion in 1940. They lived in tight quarters, followed strict routines, and trained constantly. However, many never saw direct combat while stationed there, but their role was vital. A lot of German soldiers who occupied the tunnels in 1940 also never made it home. Let's go ahead and finish up our recipe for today. So all that it's left to do is basically to stuff the sausages or stuff the meat mixture into the casing. I want to mention that this is not a traditional way of making sausages, and I'm sure a lot of my friends in Serbia who are watching this program will comment on my sausage making. But if you want to make a small batch, and for people who live without smokehouses and a big equipment, this is an easy and a simple way to make some homemade sausages. Ideally, sausages should be dry in a smokehouse during the late fall and early winter. But I managed to get mine dry enough just in my fridge, making sure that temperature was right and ensuring that there was a lot of airflow around them. So let's see what they look like inside. I have to say that I'm quite surprised that they turn out so good. The flavor is there. The only thing that's missing, it's a little bit of that smoky flavor, but otherwise the meat is very tasty and the paprika has done its miracle. These sausages make a perfect snack, and they're also great if you're hosting, so you can use them for appetizer. The reason we chose to make sausages today is to follow up with the theme of underground kitchen in France. And this is one of those foods that it's highly nutritious and it's easy to keep. Our recipe is done for today, but I have one more place to stop by and to share with you. In the quiet hills outside Verdun stands one of the most solemn and powerful memorials of the First World War. A towering monument to the immense cost of a single battle, and a place where silence speaks louder than words. The Battle of Verdun, fought in 1916, was one of the longest and the bloodiest battles in human history. Lasting for 10 months, it claimed over 700,000 casualties. It's a sacred resting place for the remains of more than 130,000 unknown French and German soldiers. White crosses mark 16,000 individual graves. There are also 52 mass graves. Each one holds the remains of hundreds of soldiers who could not be identified, gathered from the shattered battles of Verdun. The graves here stand as a powerful warning to future generations, a monument not only to dead, but to peace. As we come to the end of today's journey and this episode, we are reminded of the profound cost behind the freedom we often take for granted. The countless graves speak volume about sacrifice, courage, and human spirit. We are incredibly fortunate to live in times of peace and prosperity, all thanks to young men and women who gave their lives so that we can live in a better world. If these soldiers could speak to us now, what message would they send? Surely it would be hope, resilience, gratitude, and solemn plea to cherish peace. They would surely want us to honor their sacrifices through unity, understanding, and a commitment to building a world where future generations don't need to endure the horrors of war. I imagine the message would be, remember our sacrifices, but more importantly, live lives that make that sacrifice meaningful. Stand for justice, embrace compassion, and work tirelessly for peace. Choose a future of freedom and no wars. Choose hope over hatred and courage over fear. We must draw from this wisdom. We must listen to the voices of history, not to glorify war, but to understand it and to reject it as a solution. In a world facing constant rising tensions, the path to peace is not paved with power, but with empathy, cooperation, and the courage to choose dialogue over destruction. We can prevent next war, but only if we remember the last one, not with pride, but with purpose. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching this program and for spending time with me. In our next episode, we'll continue with our travels through France. But until then, please don't forget to take good care of yourself and those around you.